Welcome to ZI classes. Today I will be discussing one of the most interesting topic of English literature, that is the Anglo Saxon period that goes from 410 AD to 1066 AD. हम लोग पढ़ेंगे historical background, literary characteristics, types of work written during this period, and the famous authors as well as their manuscripts and heroic poems and religious poems of this period. Now if we look at the historical background of this period, तो सबसे पहले ब्रिटेन में जो कम्युनिटी रह रही थी फ्रॉम 55 BC, दे वर नोन एज द ब्रिटॉन्स, और जो ब्रिटेन नेम है वो भी इसी पर्टिकुलर कम्युनिटी से आया. उसके बाद क्या होता है, 410 AD में एक इन्वेजन होता है. किसका? द थ्री जर्मेनिक ट्राइब्स. दे वर the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes, who came and invaded this place. The Jutes were very less in population and the tribe was largely dominated by the Angles. कहीं ना कहीं यहीं से इंग्लैंड नाम भी आया, that is Anglo plus land, Anglo-land, which later gets to England. And if we look at the concept of the Old English language, then the original language that was spoken by the Britons plus the language that was brought by these three Germanic tribes together comprises the Old English language. Now, if we look at the literary characteristics of this period, then little scientific and cultural development was seen. There was no printing press and major work lost due to oral transmission. यहाँ पे क्या था कि जो भी वर्क था, they were just orally transmitted. कोई प्रॉपर रिटन डॉक्यूमेंट नहीं था, इसीलिए ज़्यादा वर्क था वो क्या था, ओरली ट्रांसमिटेड था, और द मेजर वर्क लॉस बिकॉज ऑफ दिस प्रोसेस ऑफ ओरल ट्रांसमिशन. एंड दिस पीरियड कंप्राइजेज फ्रॉम 410 AD and continues till 166 AD. So this is a long span of almost 600 years and no remarkable piece of literature was written during the entire period. So this period is also known as Dark Ages. अब क्या होता है, दो कम्युनिटी, द फर्स्ट वन वाज द ब्रिटॉन्स जो पहले से रह रहे थे, फिर इन्वेजन एंड द कमिंग ऑफ द थ्री जर्मेनिक ट्राइब्स. तो द एंगल्स, द सैक्सन एंड द जूट्स वर पेगन, दैट इज दे डोंट बिलीव इन गॉड, दे वर काइंड ऑफ एथिस्ट. तो अब जिसको भगवान में विश्वास ही नहीं है तो वो क्या करेंगे, रिलीजियस पोइट्री तो लिखेंगे नहीं. सो दे स्टार्टेड राइटिंग हीरोइक पोइट्री. And the original inhabitants, that were the Britons, they got influenced by Saint Augustine, who was propagating Christianity in the entire Europe in 572 AD. तो क्या होता है कि जो ब्रिटॉन्स थे, they got converted to Christianity and it has been said that they become more educated and they started writing religious poetry. So if we divide the section of poetry, then it comes the heroic and the religious. The heroic that was written by the three Germanic tribes and the religious that was written by the original inhabitants living from 55 BC, and they were the Britons. Now, apart from poetry, there are different types of work that was prevalent in this period. They were the epic poetry. Beowulf is an excellent example of epic poetry. The hagiography, it is based on the life of saints. The sermons, which we call Updesh in Hindi. The chronicles, that is something related to history, and riddles that we call pahelia. Now apart from this, I would like to give you the glimpse of the authors that were prevalent during this period. The two most famous religious poets were the Caedmon and the Cynewulf. Caedmon was famous for his hymns, and Cynewulf religious work includes the Juliana, Fate of Apostles, Christ, and Elaine. In his work Christ, he majorly discussed about the various events that has occurred during the life of Jesus Christ. Another author is Bede, who was a historian and a monk, and he was also the writer of a famous work that is Ecclesiastical Society of English People. Then comes Alfred the Great. He was a famous prose writer and he was also the king of Wessex, and he also converted some of the text into Latin. And then comes the Alferic, who was a prose writer and a priest. Now, there were also manuscripts that were written there, and some of the most famous manuscripts includes the Versailles book, the Julius manuscript, the Exeter book, and the Beowulf manuscript. Now, कमिंग टू द स्टार्टिंग, सबसे पहले थे ब्रिटॉन्स, उसके बाद आया था 3 जर्मेनिक ट्राइब्स। दे वर द एंगल, द सैक्सन एंड द जूट्स। जूट्स की बात कम होती है क्योंकि दे वर वेरी लेस इन पॉपुलेशन। So Anglo-Saxon mainly settled in an area which is called the Kent, and they divided the whole Britain into 7 kingdoms, in which the most powerful kingdom was Northumbria. वो आए, वो पूरे ब्रिटेन को 7 किंगडम्स में डिवाइड किए, जिसमें सबसे पावरफुल किंगडम जो इमर्ज हुआ दैट इज द नॉर्थम्ब्रिया. And the Anglo-Saxon would also have their kings, who was Harold Godwinson. Now, if we look at some of the examples of heroic poem and religious poem, then the heroic poem includes works like Widsith and Beowulf, and the religious poem includes Genesis and ecclesiastical theory of English people, which was written by Bede. So this is all about the Anglo-Saxon period, and in the next video, I will cover the fall of Anglo-Saxon and the rise of Anglo-Norman. Thank you.